Bueno, pues esta noche nos acompaña John Katzenbach con esta su más reciente, digamos que es la más reciente producción nada más, que es el analista 2, porque ya hay un analista que fue una de sus primeras novelas, y él es uno de los autores más leídos, más vendidos sin duda del género de misterio. Y para mí, I'm thrilled. Thank you so much. Thank you, John.
It's my pleasure to be here.
Thank you so much. And you've been here before, no?
Yes.
We were just talking like this is a very big fair,
Yes.
a very prestigious fair.
What makes it, in my view, such a fun place to visit is that it attracts so many young people. And to see teenagers and early 20s who are reading books, reading novels, is just, it's musical to me.
That means that we are still reading. I
Yes.
mean, maybe less than before, but youngsters are still reading. Or,
Yes, I think that, I think they are. It's been a long time since I was a youngster, so I can't tell for certain, but I think, and the thing that's interesting, especially true here in Mexico, the young people, not only do they get what the sort of psychological underpinnings of the story, but they understand the emotional quality of each character. And this is, you know, for a writer, this is just spectacular.
Well, you work with emotions, right? It's
Yes.
like your second skin. Emotions for you are your second skin.
Yes, yes. Although I think that you know, as a novelist, it's kind of an odd thing because so much of your own personality, character, emotional nature flood into the books, and yet you're not totally aware of what, you know, I don't ever sit down and say, well, this character is going to be exactly like me. You know, the standard that I always use is, would I do what Dr. Starks does? But of course, would I do what, you know, Rumpelstiltskin does, you know,
Yeah.
the bad guy?
I know. It's good you're not in all the characters, but part of you is, right?
Of course.
Even the criminal minds.
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
even women, men.
Yeah.
I mean, your
Well-
characters, they all have something, a part of you.
Yes, yes, absolutely. A good part or a bad part. Once, many years ago, I was, the People magazine in the United States did an article about me, and they wrote, few writers of criminal fiction understand the criminal mind as well as Katzenbach. And for years, I thought this was a compliment. And
Not
then
anymore.
I realized maybe it wasn't. You know, maybe you don't want to understand that. So I mean, it's
But you've been
different.
studying the minds and souls
Yes.
of all these people, no? I mean,
Yes, absolutely. Well, the word, you phrase that well, because but it's a different kind of studying. It's watching. It's not necessarily
observing, maybe?
It's not so much trying to attach a identifiable psychiatric condition to a patient or to a character. It is about understanding how certain psychological positions will manifest themselves or will work on a page. And that's a trick. Boy, that was a really long-winded and complicated answer. You know, and you feel like,
Let's rephrase. Let's try to do it simple.
I don't like to sound like an academic, you know.
But I mean, I sort of understand what you say. I mean, I do.
I bet you understand it a lot better than I know.
No,
right?
we all do have a dark side, right?
Yeah.
And I guess what you do is to enlighten our dark sides and the dark side of your characters, maybe. Mm-hmm. You just give light to that side.
Well, in all of our lives, your life, my life, and everyone watching, they run into moments of evil. And it can be as simple as an argument, or as complicated as a confrontation with a gun. It is the writer's job to sort those and channel those onto the pages of the book, so that when you come to read this, you say to yourself, "Oh, that makes sense."
It's kind of normal.
Yeah, it's normal. It may be somebody, shooting another person, but you're saying that's normal.
Because at the end of the story, I mean, we all have evil thoughts, no?
Yes. Yeah. I presume mine are much more evil than yours, but yes, I think.
Why is that? Because of your expertise, or because?
No, I'm just trying to be polite.
I don't think so. But let me ask you this now: if we all do have like evil thoughts,
yes,
but we're not all criminals.
True.
So, the line. Where's the line? I mean, between my evil thoughts and me killing somebody.
Well, we all have. Everyone has sat down at some point and said, "I'd like to kill that person."
Yeah. If we are honest,
I'd like to kill that.
Yes.
My boyfriend. I'd like to kill my girlfriend. I'd like to kill my boss. But we don't act on it. But what it displays to all of us is that the line between action and thought it should be a large, you'd think that there's a wide gap, but in my books, I narrow that gap.
It's like this thin, the line.
Yes, so that people have to step over it.
Now, you've been writing for the last 30 years? Your career as a novelist, let's say.
Yes, since dinosaurs walked the earth. Yes.
Come on.
Yeah.
And it's been how many books? Like 16, 17?
Yeah, I think I'm 14 or 15.
Okay.
I lose track.
You do? Really?
Yeah, well, the worst thing that can happen to you is when you're writing and you will write something, a phrase or a description, and you'll say, "Oh, that's great, that's terrific," and then you realize, I may have just used that before, and you go back, 6 books, and there it is.
And there it is.
So that's, I've been, many books now, and I try to make them all different, even a sequel.
Like this one. Yeah. This is The Analyst 2.
Yes.
And The Analyst, first part, it's like one of your most popular books, right?
Yes.
Novels. Yeah.
Yes. Although, I've never understood what makes a book popular. And this is not just true for my work.
For everybody's work.
It's perhaps you can tell me what it is that will make people suddenly leap up and run to the stores to buy it.
I have no idea. Maybe because it's a good story.
Well, let's hope. Let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope.
That's the only. That's the only possible answer, I guess.
Yeah.
But now it's always been the same genre, right?
Yes.
Always mystery, always thriller.
Yes. Let me tell you, my deep, dark secret. I never thought there was any other kind of book to write. some of that came out of my early career as a journalist.
That was exactly what I wanted to ask. That's because of your background. You were a reporter, Polish reporter, or journalist.
As a journalist in covering crime. But the fact of the matter is that just because you've seen crimes and covered them as a journalist, that won't, turn you into a writer of psychological
of course not.
Tension. And I had every book that I ever read as a child, I was looked at it from the point of view as a thriller. Why am I turning these pages? And how exciting is it? I told a gathering today at the fair. I was asked about other books, and I've always felt Charles Dickens was the greatest writer of suspense there was, because people used to line up waiting for the next chapter of one of his books.
Same thing happens to you.
Well, yeah. Well, now it's a little, we deliver them a little faster, but it's to create a story where people need to know what happens, and that's the sort of the mantra that I keep saying to myself. Will people want to know what happens?
Okay. What happens next?
Yeah, exactly.
No? What happens next?
What happens
But
next?
why are we so fascinated by this kind of, by this genre? I mean, mystery, thriller, crime, Criminal Minds.
That is the question. That is the most profound question. Mas profundo, right? Why are people drawn to these stories? And I suspect that if I sat here and Gillian Flynn sat here and Stephen King sat here and Don Winslow sat there, you'd get different answer from every one of us. To me,
What's yours? Yeah.
I believe that it is merely about people get drawn into a story. The characters are real to them, and the situation is real. And then they are compelled to get through to that last page. It's in the same way that think how hard it is to walk out of a movie. And a novel, we're asking, it's a much more intense relationship.
Pretty much.
Yeah. So I guess that's the best. It's not a great answer, but that's the best I can come up with.
But we are fascinated by this type of writing. I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank goodness.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Now, did you ever imagine you would turn out to be a cult writer? I mean.
Oh.
Let's not be modest and let's.
Not really, because I had always thought of a cult writer as somebody really specific. I'm trying to, some of the guys, Kerouac and people like, Harlan Coben, that would really, had this following of, the same 250,000 people who were following him everywhere. Like the people used to follow the Grateful Dead around on their concerts.
Yeah.
But you realize after a while that because people are reading all of your books, that it almost has a kind of it has a cultish kind of attraction to it, I'm not sure that it isn't. You hope that you're doing the right thing for your readers. That every time they read a book, that it is it's uplifting them,
And exciting. Yeah.
But it gives them a. Mary Higgins Clark, the great mystery writer, once said to me when I was very young in my career. She said that every book should have an element of hope in it, and I thought that was a very valuable lesson. Mm-hmm. So I try to install
always do that.
Always, yeah.
Now we were talking about your early days as a journalist in newspapers, and you saw a lot of violence, I guess, and maybe you met some criminal minds as well.
Gosh, yes. yeah.
So my question would be if reality surpasses the fiction you write. I mean, because most of the times we think it won't, but it does. I mean,
it does. No, that's a hell of a good question. Because the truth is, when we look at crime and what happens around us, mostly what we see simply is violence and the really terrible things that people will do to each other. As a novelist, it's your job to create a emotional background for any violence that goes into the book, so that it's a different kind of thing. When I was young, and I covered some horrendous crimes, but they existed in a kind of a world of their own, and they were just an event, whereas this is a story, and that's the difference.
Yeah. Now, are we getting? I mean, is this world? I mean, we're full of violence and criminal minds, and we're getting sicker and every time more sick and more sick and more sick.
Not really, because I mean, I actually think that from the first time that a caveman picked up a bone and whapped his neighbor across the head, we've been pretty much the same. I mean, we go through, what happens is that our technology of violence is much more sophisticated. When you took your sword,
mm-hmm.
There were only so many things you could do with that.
9/11, for example. From that to 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, now we can do stuff. I mean, in the United States, we're having, we have terrible debates over the routine of violence, and
we're getting used to it. I mean, it's like part of our scene.
Part of the problem is, I mean, yes. I mean, if you cover this violence over and over and over again, and you shouldn't have. You have to as a reporter, but it loses meaning. So it becomes, it takes something spectacular to really ring people's bells.
Do you think we all have the potential to become dangerous?
En el financiero Bloomberg nos conectamos con el público que reconoce lo importante. El financiero Bloomberg.
Do you think we all have the potential to become dangerous?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes.
What would be a target, I mean, for each one?
Well, for me?
Yeah, for
would be
example.
somebody give me a bad review? No, I mean,
Good to know.
yeah, exactly. I think that, don't you think that in this world, because we live so, so many people only want to hear what they want to hear, and they only open themselves up to a certain kind of repeated stuff, and that this lends itself to violence, and it lends itself to justify certain behaviors. That's how, I mean, actually, earlier today I was being driven to airport by an Uber driver, and we got to talking about exactly this. And he turned to me and he said, well, no one is born violent. It has to be taught. And I think, out of the mouths of Uber drivers are, profound truths.
We're not natural born killers, I mean.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I may have a little bit of it, but yes, they have. No, we have to learn it, and that's different.
So maybe we're doing something wrong. I mean.
Well, yeah, but we've been doing something wrong since about 1000 BC. Yeah. So.
Like in Mexico, we're living a very tough time regarding violence, for example.
Of course.
And criminal events.
Yes, but I would say that the Mexican people, the strength of the Mexican people, will overcome this. 100 years from now, it probably won't. People will look back at this in the same way that we look back at 100 years ago, the First World War. Nothing that has happened in Mexico can equal those British generals sending 60,000 men out of their trenches at the Battle of the Somme, and they died. I mean, on one day. I mean, so perspective is difficult on all this.
Now, what about your characters, even the bad guys, like you call them? Do you get to be empathetic with them?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I've said before, the bad guys are the engine to a book. But the good guys are the gears. If your bad guys aren't, it's not so much realistic, but if they don't come across as genuine, they won't work. And one of the biggest problems I have in the world
creating,
is that it's what I call the Spider-Man problem.
Which is?
Well, when we see Spider-Man in a movie, and he's up against the Green Goblin or whomever, we know that Spider-Man is going to get knocked around pretty badly. He's going to be ripped up and torn up and whatnot. But we know that in the end, he's going to win.
Of course. He'll survive, he's going to win, and he's going to be a hero.
Right. In books like mine, I work really hard to avoid that kind of cartoonish behavior. I want you to think that on every page that it is possible that the hero of the book may not overcome the problem that the bad guy is creating. And that
Which is true life.
Which is more
No?
like life.
Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Avoid cartoons.
Avoid cartoons, yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
But now, if you're empathetic to the bad guys,
Yeah.
even, and they become unforgettable, no, like that's the best thing that could happen to a book is that the no,
Yes.
the main character becomes unforgettable. But also in terms of endearment, I mean, do you relate with your bad guys like in terms
Yes.
of endearment as well?
Absolutely, absolutely. I've always argued that the reason that Hannibal Lecter is so successful as a character is, as awful as he is both fascinating and he's attractive. And that, that's the truth of him. I mean, I think that if you think about the, great villains in literature, I mean, they've always had a sort of fascinating quality to them. And I try to bring that to my own bad guys.
Because they're much more interesting and complex, no? The characters. That's why they are so fascinating, I think, and interesting, no?
Absolutely. Again, go back to Spider-Man. The bad guy, they're just not that interesting, because they're not going to win.
You know what is going to happen.
Yeah, eventually. Yeah.
Eventually, you know what is going to happen.
It's going to be a rocky road, but you're going to get there.
Yeah.
And whereas in a good novel, a good psychological thriller, there's uncertainty about everything. And I think you see that in in the best books. It's certainly true of those people I just mentioned. The Gillian Flynns of the world, the Don Winslows. I mean, those, there are a lot of very good writers that are able to keep suspense. Suspense is about emotion.
Absolutely, yeah.
And
surprise. And,
yeah. And that's what they keep up.
Yeah. And it's the same example you've used several times, like the wolf and the story of the wolf and the Red Riding Hood.
Yeah,
I mean,
course.
the wolf is a very interesting.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting. Yeah.
That happens in real life as well. I mean, like good people are boring, or what?
Ooh,
Or there's no such thing as good people because we all have issues and we all have flaws, and I don't know. I mean, I'm asking you.
I could answer that, but then I'd have to charge you money for your psychoanalytic session. I think that
You learned that from your mother, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. But I think we have to, what makes us interesting as humans it is not necessarily our good side. I mean, in some cases, yes. What made Nelson Mandela interesting was how positive he was.
Very exceptional cases, no?
But on the other hand, what made Winston Churchill so interesting were all the conflicts that he had. I mean,
He was a complex character.
Yeah,
yeah,
complex.
absolutely.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
that's why he's so interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Otherwise, it's dull.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. I mean, who would you rather have dinner with? Someone flawed, like like the late Lady Diana, or Mother Teresa.
Oh.
I would go with Lady Diana.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Interesting.
Very
Far
interesting.
more interesting.
Yeah. Complex. Very complex.
Did a lot of very good things. It did some not, other things.
Yeah.
So.
Now, other people, we have like the same fears, because you work with fear as well.
Oh, yeah.
All the time. That's
right.
That's suspense is about that
Yeah.
as well. But we fear to different things, or to different events or circumstances,
Well,
or they're like universal fears.
Think of it this way. If a snake crawled across the room, I might be on the, jump up.
Yeah, me too. I would do it faster, I guess.
But someone else would just walk over and pick it up. And fear strikes people in different ways, and because it invariably plays a different chord. I remember I was in Alaska fishing, and we were on these little airplanes, with the land on the water. And we got caught in a fog bank. Well, there's no instruments in the plane, and there are mountains all around you. And I was sitting there just, like this. And, my friend next to me, in the seat next to me, he was just snoring away.
No.
Not a problem, And so, different things impact, fear different ways.
It triggers different.
Yeah. And I try to, in the books, especially in this one, I try to use fear both to advance the plot, but also to twist the plot in certain ways. I think that, there's been some really great scary writers over time. They really understand. The late Ambrose Bierce.
What comes first, the story or the character? How do you...
That's a simple question, but it's very good. Is almost invariably the story happens, but instantly you see the characters that are in it, and so the break between the characters and the story is momentary.
Okay, just maybe minutes away.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
yeah.
okay. But you do think first about the story.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. How do you create your character? Who do?
Boy, that's a good question. If I could actually,
Where do you get them from?
well, people ask.
From different pathologies, or what?
Yeah, sometimes.
Yeah.
When I wrote a book called El Profesor, that was straight out of a illness that was afflicting a friend of mine. And so, bang, there was my character and my story right there. So it can be a lot of, I have written books based on a single conversation that I had with someone. In fact, the original, El Cico and Lista, came out of one conversation with my mother, who was a psychoanalyst. And I was just suddenly asked her one day, I said, how do you know the person lying on the couch is who they say they are? And she said, well, I don't.
Yeah, she doesn't know. Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that's interesting. And the next thing you know, I was writing the book. So simple things.
So you are an observer, let's say, but you have to actually analyze, no? Like these complex minds and souls also,
Yeah.
And get to learn the different pathologies, and then you know what kind of character you want to create.
Yes, absolutely. If I didn't, I'd be writing the same character every time.
Yeah.
And so, I don't like to talk very much about books I'm working on, but in this one, I have a character who may or may not have killed a number of people, but who has done so for extremely good reasons. In other words, go back to what we were saying where you think, oh, I like to kill my boss. Well, extrapolate that a bunch of times.
But you always try to justify the acts of your evil guy. I mean,
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
It makes sense. I mean, certainly in both the analyst and the sequel, they are, the motivation for the bad guys is, makes sense. And if you're compelled to find revenge, a lot of you're willing to do a lot of things. And never underestimate what kind of cruel thoughts people can actually act on. Not our best quality as humans.
Yeah, no. No.
Whales don't do it.
No. Of course not. Now, why a sequel of The Analyst?
It was interesting. I really didn't want to do one. Years passed. I got older and, stupider.
It's been almost 15 years of
yes.
the first.
And I had a conversation with a friend, and he, at the end of it, he simply said to me, he says, well, why do you think that story was over? And he said that, and I began to think. And the first, and the truth is, writing a sequel is as hard, if not harder, than writing the original. Because people know the characters, they come to it, and they have to find something that is an original way. You can't simply tell the same story. The sequels that fail do that. It just, okay, we're just going to redo the exact same thing. But so I wanted to find a different way of engaging all those characters. And I hope I did.
Well, yeah, of course you did.
Well,
you did.
never know.
People are.
You can't.
Yeah.
No,
You've been translated to how many languages?
Oh, all the books. I think I'm 30 languages.
Wow.
A lot. I remember when I wrote my first book, and I sold it in Japan, and my agent called me up and said, "Oh, we have, got an offer from Japan." I said, "Well, who checks?" And he said, "Who checks what?" And I said, "Who checks to make sure that the Japanese are going to translate my book faithfully and accurately?" And he hesitated, and he kind of said, we don't really do that.
It's an act of faith, I guess.
Exactly. Then he said, we make sure that their check clears to us, so you get paid. But other than that, we don't really check. One of the things that was around the world, in Romania, I've had some of my books published there, and the cover art for all of my books that have been published there bears no relation to the actual story, but the artists always seem to use an image that looks very much like a modern movie star. and so I have a book with somebody who looks very much like Keanu Reeves on it, and another that looks very much like Bruce Willis on it, and you kind of go, geez, if these guys out in Hollywood ever knew that this is what the Romanians were doing, they'd be very angry.
Very angry.
Yeah.
Now, Bruce Willis acted in a movie
In Heart's War, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's
You
a
did
very
the
interesting
screenwrite-
guy. Yeah. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you did the. You're also a screenwriter, I guess.
Yeah,
I mean,
but
of your own
Yeah,
novels.
I kind of, you know, in that case, there was a, you know, they hired a Hollywood guy to do it, and yeah, I wasn't terrifically happy with some of the things he did. Sometimes the magic works, and sometimes it doesn't.
Okay. But were you able to interfere or no? I mean, they just bought the rights.
Yeah,
Okay.
I made a couple of suggestions, which weren't listened to. You know, and you know, I tried not to be, you know, too much of a, you know, an irritant to them. But I think I failed at that. There was at one point, I sent out this long memo about all the things that they had wrong in the script, and let's just say that the people at MGM were not happy.
Not at all. I can imagine.
But on the other hand, sometimes it just works wonderfully. You know, you see these adaptations that work terrifically. I mentioned Gillian
Which one
Flynn.
did you like?
You know, Gone Girl I thought was, but the most famous one is Thomas Harris. You know, The Silence of the Lambs. Ted Talley wrote the script. It's brilliant.
Brilliant.
Brilliant. And Tom Harris says that he has never seen the movie.
No, really?
True. That's true. Had dinner with him the other night. He says he's never seen the movie.
Wow.
I'm not sure I believe him, but it's a brilliant movie. Brilliant movie. And so sometimes
Would you like to work on TV series, for example, nowadays that everybody's watching?
Commence par nous, je vais dire la sensibilisation de chacun.
Economía, cierre de bolsa, negocios, finanzas. Víctor Piz presenta lo más relevante de las noticias al sonar la campana. Con Víctor Piz, lunes a viernes, 3 de la tarde. Porque reconoces lo importante, el financiero Bloomberg.
Would you like to work on TV series, for example, nowadays that everybody's watching, like
absolutely,
TV?
Netflix. Yeah,
Yeah, Netflix, for example.
I am actually optimistic that I'm going to have a Netflix deal on a couple of old books.
Wow.
Soon.
But you wouldn't be working on something new, but just the adaptation of a couple of books to...
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
I mean, it's. I think that the episodic television is really great, and the stories are richer and more sophisticated, and they get much closer to what a writer originally thought. When I don't know if you've seen it down here, the first season of True Detective. It's on HBO.
Not me. See?
Yeah. So I mean, there are some really good. The French do this really well, and the British.
They're very good at it. Yeah.
The French have. There's a Netflix show from France called La Monte, which is.
I loved it.
Oh,
wow, I loved it.
Fabulous
I'm
show.
a super fan.
Yeah, exactly.
La
I mean,
Monte. I
yeah.
told you about La Monte, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you good friends of Bill Clinton, right?
Oh no, my folks were, but no, I have to say that he's not a friend of mine. You know.
He's not.
No. Although the person who wrote his biography, David Meredith,
Yeah.
is a really good friend of mine.
Oh, okay.
You know, so it's one step removed.
Okay, what about Obama? And what do you think about Trump and
Okay.
politics?
Obama was probably one of the greatest presidents we will ever know in our lifetime. Trump, on the other hand, is undoubtedly the worst president that we have had since 1776. And, you know, and the reason being is he doesn't care. You know, he doesn't care about anything except himself. And
Egocentric.
yeah. Well, he in my estimation, and I should be, you know, I'll probably get, and they won't let me back in the United States.
Come
you know,
on.
but they,
You're welcome here anyway.
Yeah, great. I like it here. But I was fishing once with one of my psychiatrist friends, and he said, Trump is the worst case of narcissistic personality disorder he's ever seen. And then he said, you know what the problem with that is? I said, what's the problem? He said, you can't treat the disease. You can't treat something where somebody doesn't think they're sick. If you get a cold, you know you've got a cold.
You'll be diagnosed and then you can get better.
Yeah, right. You know, you're going to take some aspirin and you're going to get better. But if you believe that everyone should have a cold but not you, how can you treat that cold? You know, it's just we're in a really rough place in America, but it's improving slowly but surely.
You like Mexico, you've been here before.
Yes.
How, I mean, we were talking how Mexican readers are. And,
Yeah.
you know, are we all Latins? We react the same?
No.
Like reading your books or?
No. Interestingly enough, that every country I've been to in Latin America, from Argentina to Mexico, the relationship people have with the books have subtle yet noticeable differences. In Argentina, as you can imagine, it's very, very psychological. In Mexico, it's very emotional. People respond to the emotions of the character.
Colombia, for example?
Colombia, almost more legalistic. They like the dynamics, you know, of how each character goes. I mean, it's and all of this is different in Spain, you know.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah,
you know,
sure.
I mean,
even though we speak the same language. Yeah.
And if you really want to see it be different, go to Germany.
Yeah, it has to.
Yeah,
Where do you live?
Where do I live?
Yeah.
I live in Western Massachusetts.
Okay. You were born there.
No, I was born in New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey.
But I'm a sort of East Coast of the United States guy.
Yeah, and you travel a lot, I guess. But I mean, when you write, you have to settle down.
What it is you travel in two different ways. I travel to come down here to talk to you, and then when I'm sitting in front of the computer, you're traveling with characters. You're traveling with emotions. You're traveling with a plot of a book. So it's like, you know, it's different kinds of trips. You don't have to go on Expedia to do one, but it's the same kind of sense of motion.
And you write like how many hours a day? Are you very like specific in the way you create?
If you're not disciplined about it, it's, you know, it's hard to get it done. I tend to write about 5 hours, and think about 3 hours. And there are days where, you know, you can write a single page and feel as if you've succeeded wildly, and then the next day you can write 8 or 9 pages. So there's no rule, for me at least, on that.
But you have to sit down and
Yeah, I have to sit down and do it,
and
yes,
write.
yeah.
You're a morning person or a night person?
I work hardest in the morning, and then I rewrite in the afternoon, and then stay up late at night worrying about everything. Yeah.
So, pretty much all day.
Yeah. 24/7. It
Yeah.
really is.
John, thank you so much. I hope to see you soon again,
Oh,
and
thank you.
let us know about your next
Yes.
next book. Yeah.
Well,
when
thank
is it
you.
going to be published? I
Oh,
mean, you're
gotta-
still working on
I've
it.
got to finish it. You know, I mean, it's never easy to get something finished.
I know.
You know.
And it's not. Is it easy to get it started?
The start is the easiest part.
Is it?
Because, you know, you think, this is exciting. Hey, great, another story. Certainly that was the case here. I mean, with this book, you know, it was exciting when I figured out what was going to happen.
Yeah. But finally, what about your female characters?
Yeah.
Why most of them are like redheads?
Oh no, that's just one book. Maybe? No, I better
more.
check. No, golly, because well, let me say this. When I was in college, I had one girlfriend with reddish hair. She broke my heart, and maybe I'm trying to get back at her, you know, for 50 years.
Okay.
Yeah, I try to, you try to make them all, everybody different.
Yeah.
Especially the female characters.
Are they difficult? The female? No. I mean, considering you're a man.
All characters
Yeah.
are hard, you know. The female characters, you want them to have, you know, fundamentally be truthful. I mean, I don't want you or anyone else to sort of toss the book at me.
This is not it, yeah.
Not how it is, right? You know, and so I try to be careful.
Yeah.
Try to be
You do it great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
I enjoyed
This
it
is
so
fun.
much. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you. Y gracias a usted como siempre por su atención y compañía. Yo soy Adela Micha y hasta la próxima.